So we're getting started on the modification of the fender, front fender. This is the original driver's side front fender from the convertible. As you can see, it's been damaged in here and in here. And I don't have the expertise to fix that right. I think you'd pretty much just have to cut some of this out and replace it. It also has damage to the battery box area. The back of the fender's pretty solid. There are some bubbles coming up, a few bubbles. This is the fender that Carl had gotten, and it's actually a pretty decent fender. Good and solid up here. A little bit, some bubbles on the bottom edge coming up, so I know that'll have to be repaired. But other than that, it just doesn't look real great. But you know, that has to be all stripped down. So there are two differences in the convertible fender. This is a normal sedan fender. This is the convertible fender. You've got this bracket up here that's attached to the air deflector. And this is where the weight, the bolts that go through the weights go, and through the front nose. The bolts go through the front nose, through here, through the weight to the weights. And then also there's an additional brace on the convertibles going to the cowl. So not very hard to swap those. You know, basically I'll clean this up, find all the spot welds, drill them out. I've taken detailed measurements of where this bracket's located and where that small tab is located, and I'll also measure the passenger side fender as a comparison. So we'll just go ahead and put them in the same place on this fender, and we'll be good to go, except for, of course, stripping the fender down and fixing some rust there. So that's what we're going to get started on now, is getting these two pieces off, getting this bracket off and getting this attachment off here. First step to getting these brackets off is to figure out where the spot welds are. So I took my electric grinder with a 80 grit, kind of like a flapper disc, and just hit this lightly so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 spot welds on that. I wanted that thing to stay there. Down here on this bracket, I just used some 80 grit sandpaper, and they went crazy with the spot welds here. 1, 2, 3, big one, 4, 5, 6, 7 it looks like. So next we'll center punch these and drill them out. I use my spring-loaded center punch to center punch each of these holes. Then I'm using a bullet drill bit. It has a little pilot on it, and this works good. The relatively flat cutting area works out good for drilling out spot welds. So let's get a couple of these drilled, see how this works out. Okay, so I've drilled through the spot welds. Kind of messed up, drilled all the way through that one, but that's okay. Now, you see, it's not off yet, because unless you drill a really big hole, you're not going to get every little bit of the spot weld. But you've got the main portion. Then I'll use one of these glazier's knives. I think it's like for working sheetrock, puttying up sheetrock or something. And you slip that under there with a hammer and tap it. Well, a little more than tap. Maybe not quite beat on, but somewhere in between. And this does a good job of breaking that little left bond that's left. Here I'm about halfway through. I've got these 4 here, and I'm just going to continue and get the rest of these cut off. Okay, so it's off. You can see most of these I just barely got into the sheet metal on the deflector. That one, of course, it went all the way through. Got a little deep on that one. But if I want to reuse this, I can just weld these up, grind them, and you know, if I want to use this deflector or this fender, if I decide I want to try fixing this place here, I can use this again on some other car. One nice thing about it is that this piece right here is real nice. It's not rusted. So I know in my Champ, the tops underneath here is rusted real bad. I might have to fix that. If you look at the bottom of the plate, you'll see that pretty much cut most of those spot welds out. There was a little, this one is a little bigger, and that one a little bit, and that one some. But I don't want to get these holes too big, or else I've got to do a lot of welding when I go ahead and plug weld this back. But except for some cleaning up, this is ready to plug weld onto the other fender. For this bracket, it'll be a little different. I'm going to drill all the way through this fender lip, but I really don't want to drill in much into the bracket itself. So I'm going to have to be a little more careful. You can usually see, while you're drilling, you can usually see and kind of feel when you get through the first layer. So I'm using a lot smaller drill also. So let's get started. Alright, got it off. This one didn't come out quite as easy. A little more, sorry about that. Had to do a little bit more beating on it to get the rest of the spot welds cut, and I'll have to do a little repair to this because I've got a few places where I've drilled into it, but that won't be so bad. I'll blast it and weld it up, clean it up. So the pieces are almost ready. I've touched up where I drilled partially through this piece, and I just need to grind that down. I'll put some weld through primer on there. And then this big one I've got cleaned up, beveled the holes or countersunk the holes a little bit. Got some primer on the back side of it, and so we're almost ready to locate these and weld them on. Alright, the big bracket is clamped down. I've measured it like 15 times. It's right where it needs to be, measuring this way, this way, this way, this way. Just every dimension that I could get off of the other fender. And these holes are oversized, so there's a little room for a little slop, but this is pretty much exactly where it was on the original fender. So we're going to go ahead and weld it, and hopefully I got the right setting. This is a little unusual because we're welding a fairly thick plate, almost 1/8 of an inch to about 16 gauge or so. I measured them. Sheet metal, so I want to get enough heat to get good penetration in this bracket, but I don't want burn through the sheet metal. So that's done. I had to grind down a couple till I got my heat setting right, but not the prettiest things, but it's on there. So I'm not going to grind them all down. These were just extra ugly. So now we're going to go on to the little bracket on the lip of the fender that goes to the brace, the cowl brace. By the way, I did go ahead and prime this bracket and the areas that I had took the paint off. By the way, it is Christmas Eve, and no snow, but do have my two sons. My youngest son got in yesterday, late last night from Arizona, and my oldest son's driving in from the far western reaches of North Carolina today. So we're going to have a good Christmas for the whole family. The only way I was able to figure out where to position this bracket was on the original fender. I measured using a string from the very edge of the fender down through here, taped it so it stayed where it was supposed to be, down to the edge, where the edge of the bracket, this angle here, touched the lip of the fender. So I did that on both fenders. I did that. This is the original driver's side, and I did that on that one. And then here's the original passenger side. I did it on that one, and they were a few 1/16 of an inch off, but pretty close. I don't think that's that big a deal. I think getting this angle right, the way the bracket rolls down some, I think that's more important. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and do that measurement. I'm not going to show you that. I don't think you want to sit here and watch me doing that. But that's how we're going to locate this bracket. This is how I did it with the string. The same string I used to measure on the other fenders. I just taped it following this edge, and then I've got the mark there. That first mark was from the original driver's side fender. The second black mark on the string was from the passenger side, so there was a little difference. And so then I've went ahead and made a scribe mark, and I need to deepen that just a little bit. I may put a little hacksaw notch right there because I got to clean this up. The string I used was a wax string that doesn't stretch. You don't want to use a stretchy string or you're not going to get a good measurement. So that bracket will go right in here like that. Now on this fender, where this lip is rolled over some, it starts a little earlier than these other fenders for some reason. So I need to get right there, about an inch of it I need to put back to flat like that. So that's my next step. I've got the little bracket for the brace in. You can see I've drilled holes to plug weld. You can't see a lot of the holes. I think there's like 6 holes. And I've had to put a little piece of metal in there to angle it back over like it should be. So we're going to go ahead and weld it up now. This has been a little tougher than I thought to get this position correctly. Got it welded up. Welds come out pretty decent. I'll knock those down a little bit. I'm not going to knock them down perfectly flat because it'll be hard to do on this. It's not, there's a little lip here I don't want to grind down, but knock these down, shoot some primer on it, protect it, and we're done. And the finished product, primed, well, self-etching primer. This whole fender will be blasted, but for now I want to get the front sheet metal back in the car so it can be transported. So, but this will end up being blasted, primed, and everything. Next video, we're going to start putting the front end back on. So there's the other fender. We're not worrying about color right now. We've got one red fender, one bluish black fender, a black hood, and a new old stock nose, which is black. So tune in next time.